To talk about picking your network, picking your friends and neighbors around you. You don't actually get to pick your neighbors, but you can pick which neighbors you're going to hang out with, particularly if you've been through the most recent events in some of the major cities on the West Coast, or even the smaller cities like right here where I'm at in Oregon, where they burned down two cities, arsonists and wildfires and climate change, cut down telephone poles and burned down cities. You found very quickly that your network of friends, those people around you, were extremely important to getting things done. So I have a little method. I started doing this, by the way, when I was 15. I started asking this question around the world, okay? But I also found at the micro level, on a person-to-person basis, it's also very effective in determining the character of a person without getting into politics right off the bat. Although, frequently by the answer, you will have an idea of their political affiliation. Sometimes, not always. Among educated, wealthy people, you'll get a little different answer sometimes. So the question is this. A wealthy couple goes down to Costa Rica to buy beachfront property. They spend their entire life savings. At that time, when I started telling the story, it was in the 80s. So their entire life savings was about $300,000, okay? I upped it down the road, but they spend their entire life savings of $300,000 on a beachfront home in Costa Rica looking at the ocean. They go through the whole process, the title insurance and escrow and all of this, and they move into their property. About a year later, someone knocks on the door and informs them that that is not their property. It is, in fact, the person knocking on the door saying it's our property. And the couple discovers they've been defrauded, that they've been sold bad property, all right? So first thing, it's important to have a high enough income with this person. Today, you'd probably say their life savings was $1 or $2 million. Okay, so you can have a person's mentality of how they identify with other people that they are not. Because the ability to identify with other people is extremely important to survival, and you don't want narcissists in your group, whether it's your bug out group, your business group, or marrying into your family. And so I found 3 categories of answers that told me volumes about the country I was in and the person I was talking to. So when I was in Norway, when I first started asking this question, okay, because they taught me that capitalism was fraud, which I didn't believe that, by the way, at all, and it's not. I asked them, I said, who do you think's at fault? The person who sold the property, who defrauded the couple, or the couple themselves? And they agreed with me that the couple was not at fault at all, that they should be able to buy real property anywhere they want to without being ripped off. It would be smart to do some due diligence, but there was absolutely no victim blaming. There was some learning. Well, gee, I'm not going to buy beachfront property in Costa Rica if I don't have the proper paperwork or the proper agents. But generally, among the wealthy and among Norwegians in general, they agreed that this was fraud, the couple was a victim, and the role of government is to protect people from fraud, okay? It's extremely important. In the United States, you found a little bit of a mix between the two. You found most people agreed that it was fraud and the lady, the couple was not at fault. And you found some that placed a little blame on the couple. They started out, by the way, who they start out blaming is extremely important because it telegraphs a lot. Some people know that in the United States, fraud is not acceptable, but they want to justify it in their own mind. And everybody wants to be accepted, so they want you to accept it a little bit themselves. So they'll start out blaming the couple. If they start out blaming the couple, you've got a problem, okay? You got a problem there, all right? So then they'll go to, you might have to persuade them a little bit to blame the perp. That's a real problem. If you have to persuade them to blame the perpetrator, you've got a criminal-minded person on your hand. Keep that person out of your network, okay? If they start out and they're blaming the perpetrator and then they blame the couple a little bit, not give them advice, which is different. The tier 1 people, the top level people just said, man, I'm certainly not going to do that. That's a real shame that they didn't know how to protect themselves. That's not victim blaming, all right? When the next tier down, they try to blame the victim a little bit, all right? And the third tier you'll find is in absolutely the poorest countries in the world. You'll travel to these countries, and most of the people will blame the victims, okay? And we have a little bit of that now. Like right now in the 2000s, we have some of that. If you saw the riots and the looting, you saw people talking about how the store owners were insured. They don't know that. They don't know if the store owners are insured. What you're seeing here is something that is unspoken, okay? It is the inability to identify with the victim, therefore dehumanizing the victim a little bit or a lot, depending on the poverty level and the level of malintent. Okay? So when they're blaming the victim or they're saying the store owner has insurance, these people are rich, these are poverty-minded people. Now, they didn't learn this at home, all right? I don't know of any parents that teach their kids to be criminal thieves or to be thief-minded, okay? You get this from your network of friends, and one bad apple destroys the whole punch bowl. So when your kids go to public school and they either learn this from either someone who's in control of the classroom, who is one of these people who blames the rich for everything, that's your bad apple, okay? If you have kids, one of the kids has a bad parent at home and blames victims if they're wealthy, but doesn't blame victims if they're poor, that's your bad apple, and it's contaminating your whole circle. You can overcome this when you get that person out of that circle or if that person never buys into it. But this is just one tip of picking your network of people. Ask that question when you're in a country traveling around the world. How they answer that question will tell you how much in danger you are. If you get someone on that third tier, that lowest tier, they don't even mention the perpetrator, that's because they're identifying with the perpetrator. When you're asking them who's at fault and they don't even mention the perp, that's because they can identify with the perp 100%, and the victim it's their own fault because they're successful. And you don't want anybody like that in your network. You don't want people like that moving into your neighborhood. You don't want people like that in your state if you can keep them out of your country, but you can't, okay? People believe this, they're here, they're now. Your job is to identify them and get them away from you.